do is start. I didn't realize it, but we did the stress management class last night. And a person who tuned in was my astrologist, Andrea Malice. And I got on Facebook that she was going to attend, but I didn't check my Facebook page. I was just expecting, people that said they would come, but just somebody out of the Aikido circle. So I'll contact her, see what she thought. Let's see. So we did a stress management class tomorrow. We have our outdoors class at Bestar Park. And it's supposed to be cooler than it's been. So make sure you put on something so you don't catch a chill. Let's see. Okay, that's what we would do. Let's just start with Sumo Sensei. So if we've been working certain things. Okay, so this is again from a book that is titled The Heart of Aikido. And it's no Sensei book. And it is different than a lot of the other things because it's a series of lectures that he gave not for Aikido people, but for a religious group, a friend of his, Masahisa Goi, his group. And so it's about the same material, but it's colored a little differently in certain ways. Because he's not talking to Aikido, Western martial arts, he's talking to members of Goi Sensei's community. And the Japanese title was Takemusu Aiki. It's translated here as The Heart of Aikido, translated by John Stevens. And this is from chapter 5, Perfecting Oneself in Aikido, which is a very big topic. And so it starts out, what is known as God Almighty is in fact none other than the magnificent, unlimited, and vital nature of the universe itself. At the beginning, there was no heaven, no earth, just a single spot. From that core, steam, smoke, and an incredibly dense burst of light spiraled out in a sphere. That point is what I call Su. The initial kototama, the same act described in Christian theology as, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. Simultaneously, a cosmic breath animated existence. That breath evolved into the vibrations and wavelength we know as kototama. Heaven is not high in the sky somewhere. It is right here all around us. By the act of breathing, every family, every individual is connected and living in that heaven. We are all connected from the very beginning. Aikido helps us become aware of that inescapable fact. The divine cannot be seen by the eyes or held in the hands. God refers to pure spirit. Buddha refers to pure matter. Spirit pervades matter. Matter provides the medium for spirit. To pray means to worship the divine spirit within, to vow to work in conjunction and in harmony with one's inner inspiration. Practice and learn, then reflect on what you have accomplished so far. Like this, never stop practicing, learning, and reflecting on what you've done. So that's the beginning to a chapter, and you can say maybe he does talk about this in other places, but he's also a little bit more into speaking more freely, maybe on spiritual terms. And sometimes, I imagine, I obviously was not there, but he would be in a martial arts class, an Aikido class, and he would be obviously the teacher, Sensei, it was his art. And he would start talking about various things. And that was inspiring to some and perplexing to others. Okay. So, there's a spiritual message to Aikido that is very important. And of course, Aikido exists on a variety of different levels. And so, keeping that message alive in the practice is one way that we would stay in touch with what he calls spirit. And from that, it's not so much, we think of a vast heaven there. He says that we all came out of and are existing in which you might call heaven. But we're obviously here in a more earthly dimension of which you might call heaven. But nonetheless, right? So one of the things we did a little bit with the stress management class was, we just started working what we call the energy flow between the hands. And he kind of mentioned that there was this cosmic breath, which, formed the vibrations out of what we call the kototama. So right here, for example, I get the feeling that there's, even though I'm not holding anything, there's a flow from my left to my right to my left. And it has, it feels somewhat magnetic, or like a current, or sometimes like a field. And as I continue, for example, I get the feeling that that field is not just between my hands, but I'm actually sitting right now in that field. And that field, it says that's a field, but there's also movement within that field. And you notice that motion, if this is almost like a car with one or two of the wheels out. So, we only have two, but there's a vibration, a breath connecting these two. We can alter the shape where my hands are. The field also exists in up, down. Okay? And as we experience that field, one, we realize that the field is an extension of our own body, our own life force. So on another level, our physical body, we have an energy body. If I extend the arms out, oftentimes the feeling of the arm, it lengthens. Now my physical arm starts here, but the actual sense, and this is taught a lot, if you can project the stream out, like water out of a hose, and the arm acquires a type of unbendable quality. It's not unbendable or unbreakable, but there's a type of strength when you, instead of locking and resisting a push, you just simply extend out. And so we have an energy body. Sometimes in the superhero comics, you get characters like Plastic Man or Mr. Fantastic who have elasticity. They can extend their limbs out, or they can kind of draw in, create shapes with their body, okay, that are not just our normal human shape. So we have an energy body. As the energy body starts to become even finer, we exist in the type of an energy field. So our body becomes a field. According to his theory, the universe itself, you might say, is a field, and we're a field within the field. We're kind of a mini within a larger. And having that, there's a type of a vibrational connection, like a tuning fork to tuning fork. And so we have the capacity, if we so choose, to simply be in tune. Be in communication, be in collaboration with, So Aiki can mean more than just the first two characters for Aikido. And he insists again, what he calls the I, we exist in this more earthly version of heaven, earth, okay, right? And our job here is to, right here, heaven exists, but right here we're separate from that because of what we call I. The senses, have this sort of this dialogue going on. So the senses are contaminated. So part of the misogi is clearing the I out, feeling more in tune with the deeper senses of who we are. And so the Aikido training with your partner, which right now, unfortunately, we're not able to do so well, is important. And last night we did a stress management class, because when this gets a little too, the system experiences anxiety, which can lead to the system experiencing stress. And so we kind of did a bunch of things, just energy movement, and also it's a bit of meditation. But one thing that happens for me, for example, if I just take the time to feel that flow, all of a sudden I'm not in that noisy mind place. It's there, but I'm stepping out of it a little bit. And conversely, no hands. Ooh, no hands. I'm sitting in this field. And it's real difficult, not impossible, to go back into that. But there's still a pull into that. But I can settle a little bit more. I guess that physically, my feet are on the ground. But that field has a root or base to it. You can sort of sometimes get the image of like a pyramid. So I can get to that root or base a bit. I'm more rooted or grounded in this finer state. And I become much more conscious of my own breathing. Like I'm a mini energy field. And I have a type of movement or aliveness. The field itself has a movement within itself. But let's just say the actual larger field we're in. Maybe not, since they talked about the universe, we're probably not there, but we have a little bigger model of the universe. And that has its own aliveness within itself, its own breath. Is that kind of just relax and open? Maybe. It's a possibility that those two movements start to resonate with one another. Exactly what that would feel like. You get kind of a calm there, but a very alive calm. I start to kind of pick up at that point. So kind of the center. A lot of times it's once you get root, you also get the center as a column post. And again, my perception is basically frontal, but I start to get more of a 360 sense. Not that I would be anywhere near as good, but in the comic books, spider sense. And the more I sort of get into the finer dimensions of myself and the finer dimensions of, I call it my outer model of the larger universe. I'm not O-sensei, so it's not the universe. Then there's a calmness. And something that we actually did a couple of days ago, which I thought was interesting. Yeah. This is something we did. No matter how badly someone treats me these days, I do not think badly of him or her. Dealing with bad people is one aspect of training, which is interesting. So if you've trained, you find that certain people you enjoy training with, and conversely, there will be people that you don't enjoy training with as much. Okay, so and dealing with bad people is one aspect of training. We cannot change the way things are. Now, if everything were a certain way or a certain way, this would be. We tend to kind of look at things that way. But he's just saying you cannot change the way things are. But he gives a little bit of a, good is done for the sake of good. Trust is done for the sake of trust. Love is done for the sake of love. And so it's just something that he's saying, I believe anyway, you can't change what's out there. But there's a type of growth possible in our own system that to some degree, is irrespective of what's going on out there, good or bad. Okay? If one understands this, warmth and light will coexist in just the right balance, and techniques will be born naturally. In such a state of being, we'll be able to brandish the sword of truth. This is the weapon of a spirit that guides us in daily life. Religious leaders use that spirit to teach religious practice. Politicians use that spirit to govern. Not forgetting the one source is key to all of this. Okay? So everything comes out of what he calls the one source, the one. So because of that, de facto, we're all connected, but we're all connected to everything. And that's what makes, there's this sort of a co-breathing, co-resonating with possible. Okay? So anyway, those are things that just, are very important because, we get so caught up in the activity out there and that noisy place in our mind, the I, can get so drawn out. And then there's anxiety, and then that creates stress, and all of a sudden that's a cycle that repeats itself. So good is done for the sake of good. I guess you could say bad is done for the sake of bad, but that's pretty much, that's, the question would be why at that level. I'm going to intentionally be a bad person. Well, okay. But good is done for the sake of good. Trust is another issue, largely it's a choice. I don't trust. It means I'm kind of withdrawn, or I'm creating polarities constantly, and we're kind of in this state that Sensei was talking about. You trust. You don't trust stupidly, but you trust. Trust by itself is not stupid. We can trust in a stupid way, but trust itself is not stupid. In love, I love this, I love that. That's very natural. But then again, we love for the sake of love. And so when we're kind of there, we're going back towards a more original state in ourselves. Going back to more what we were within the one. Okay. So not exactly sure, but we'll go into the other room and just move around a little bit and see how it goes. Okay, and not as prepared as I have been, so what we're going to do, we get a little better stuff. I should have had this done before class, but I didn't. Okay, and anyway, we have a couple of people that came in, which is good. Yes, okay. Let's go back here. And according to Robert Nadeau's Sensei, I'm going to also change the angle slightly so that, whoops, and level it off. Well, Sensei always had kind of a little prayer stick, right? And he said he always had it around pretty quickly. So, for example, you're just taking that, allowing it to move, all right? And of course, we have patterns of motion. Several things, for example, this is kind of a powerful thing because it's just kind of aligning to the vertical and the horizontal. All right. Okay. We have the fire water changes, come down from the top, come up from the bottom. All right. Figure eight, two-handed figure eight. Going from two-handed figure eight to these fire water changes. boom. Right? Figure 8, reverse without stopping it. These are just patterns of movement. They take a little practice to do. Thumb up, thumb down, thumb up, thumb down, figure 8, thumb down, thumb up, thumb down, thumb up, or there are a variety of different ways. Two-handed. So I go two-handed. That's movement with the arms, but really that's all movements come from your core. Your skeletal system is supported by your muscles, right? But these core muscles, right? Boom, 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 boom. And when I do the two-handed figure 8, I'm really starting to get in touch with the core, hand movements out there, core movements, the hand movements. We all start out there. All right? Okay, we start out there, but I put the two hands together. Boom. Put the two hands together. Boom. Now we're going a little bit more into basic movements. Okay? So I got my point, base, left side for me. Okay. Okay, so again, I'm using my prayer stick. Okay. And again, the grip for me is palm is in the grip. Just a little too loose. And one thing that's been brought up a little bit, shifting my weight. Or shifting my weight. Okay. I tend to do it a little differently. I tend to establish the structure here. But instead of shifting the weight, there's a motion. Well, now there is a weight shift, but I don't go like that. I go like boom, like that. Boom, 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 boom. So the movement of my core is really what allows that motion to happen. So, for example, here you'll notice the two hands are on the staff, just like I'm doing one-handed figure 8, one-handed figure 8. But I do a two-handed figure 8. All of a sudden, I could do that with the arms. It looks like that. But the two-hand, boom, 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 boom. It's the actual core that activates, for example, the movement of the hips. But I'm not moving my hips. The actual motion here is this area. Now, it's almost like there's a vibration here, boom, which then causes the hips to turn, which then the feet become a part of. So instead of a motion, boom. Everything I do, basically, I want the structure loose. All right, the boom, boom. This is what, sometimes, you tie your belt, boom. But boom, very, boom. So that's a thrusting motion. Right? Or this hand goes back to the hip as opposed to too far back. Okay. Thrust in motion. Arms, feet, arms, feet, hips, arms, core. It's like a core burst of that motion. Boom. I kind of feel this area. Oh. Okay. Oh. Oh. So all movement for me originates here when I'm doing it properly. I mean, I get sloppy out here like anybody else. Okay. And now, if we were to shift forms, I have a bokan here, but not much. This is just arms. And here I'm twisting my shoulders and hips into that stride. But here, boom. There's an echo or vibration in the core, then the hands move. Yeah, an echo vibration, of course, the feet and hands move. Boom, 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 boom. So that motion. We use that thing where you drop a safe and it's attached very firmly to something on a chain, but the second it is like boom, boom. But it's not where you lock the weight, it's like boom. That moment where it's, the chain is fully extended, boom, boom. And that's what you feel here. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Now, for example, same thing here. I'm conscious there's more weight here. Okay. And that motion. But there's that sense of, okay, now my arms are doing the movement. Arms are doing the movement. I'm getting my hip in that motion, hip and shoulder. You'll notice how right here, there's a weight shift. Go from here to there, here to there, here to there. Okay, for me, what I want to feel is I want to feel that motion. Boom, boom, boom. And off of that motion, boom, boom. So yes, you have to learn how the arms work. Yes, you want to have the balance of your feet. Yes, you want to get your hips in that motion. Okay? But this, boom. For me, the cut is a vibration. Boom, boom. Sound goes out, it echoes back. Boom. Not just the thought, but boom, being able to. So it's a tangible feeling through the body. Now the rest of the body, feet are connected to the ground, joints are loose, relaxed. Boom. Then we start to get the I'm going to do it. Now there, the vibration runs more front back. Notice how here, I'm doing it with the arms. I can learn how to do, in the beginning, if you do 500 of these, you got to work out, okay? Notice how here I'm shifting my weight back and forth. Boom. And then I'm realizing I better get my hip into that motion. But, boom, for me, the cut is boom, something here. Boom. So I'm feeling the movement of the ki as pulses or beats. And those beats have shapes. Okay? But whatever you're doing, you could be holding, you could watch it, but just want you to move a bit. I want you to try that. How do we generate? It's almost like the universe has a heartbeat. I'm sure if we were, the universe as a mother, and we were kind of like the child that mother is carrying, boom, we'd be very intimately connected with the heartbeat of the mother. And as we get up here out there, establish a human identity and everything, we lose that primal boom, boom. So, see, for me, that cut is this. Primal beat, primal beat, primal beat, primal beat. And there's that. And if you have to, you work the arms. You make sure your feet are good and underneath you. And yeah, initially, people tend to shift their weight back and forth. And eventually, they get their hip into it, which means, right? But for me, and so for me, the actual cutting motion takes you a much more primal place. There's a primal quality to it, which is very alive. And yet at the same time, very calm with itself. Okay? So swing a couple times. See if you can get in touch with this area here. Okay, why don't you come on in? We'll check in. So that feeling, boom. See the motion here. This is it a little slower, but boom. Or this motion here. There's also boom. Stephen Curry puts it pretty well. I was watching his shooting video. He talks about how your hands go, your feet go, the position of the ball. And he says, and then when you get all this right, it just explodes from your core. So I think that's, like he's a master, right? Master Choi would do movement like that, but it's like, boom, all of a sudden, boom, out of nothing or stillness, it would explode from his core. Very relaxed, boom. Okay? So that's kind of what we're working on not with any destructive intent, but really to get in touch with the more original of us, which has kind of a primalness to it. If there's the point where, yes, we live in a very civilized world, and here we are going nuts during the coronavirus. But one of the ways you can kind of, you don't combat that, you don't fight that. But when I swing the sword, I kind of get into the primalness of the beat. The beat. Not an idea here, but boom, 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 boom. Then the rest of my hands, my feet, and the actual form of the cut, it's too hard to do everything out here and do it perfectly. You start to do one thing, and all of a sudden you start to make mistakes out there. But if you're boom, just everything arranging itself from this primal beat, boom, boom, boom. Or conversely, there's a primal sort of quiet or stillness. That can move. You watch animals in nature when they're hunting. My cat, she's old, so she's having some trouble now, but I was living out in the East Hills. She hunted. And I'm sure, she would bring all these birds in, and I'd have to clean the carpet because I was renting. And she would bring the birds in and eat them on the carpet, and I have to clean the carpet up. So I'm sure she understood that primal. So although Sensei was talking about nature, he wasn't talking about an act, I love nature. Nature's inside us. And maybe we can't go out, but there's something about when you are in nature, you are in a primal energy field. And there's, I think our Sensei could tune into that no matter where he was. Feeling at a shrine, is not, there's a feeling of that too. As much as it's a spiritual sense, there's a natural primal aliveness to that, which is also important. Okay? That's one of the things, why do we get so stressed out? Because we're pushed out of our natural state of being in it. It's really like heaven. But heaven here is balanced by that aliveness, that primal nature. We're not here to just sort of be zombies. Although zombies, I just don't, whatever. I don't watch zombie shows, but okay. Anybody with a question on boom, just kind of the beat and kind of getting the, see, you got to get your hip into a movement, but and you have to have your feet on the ground, but almost any motion, boom. Almost any motion, boom. Almost any motion, boom. Really explodes, not in a violent way. I don't think of nature as violent. Nature is very, very natural, and it is primal. Boom. And so as we kind of get more in touch with those primal beats within our own system, I think that's a part of what our Sensei talked about in terms of one with the universe. Okay, anybody with a question or observation, just maybe doing some of the swinging? Anybody? Yes. Hello? Do you have something to say?
Yeah, I was trying to find the heartbeat of the universe, and I seem to be heartbeat deaf at the moment.
Yeah, it's sort of a, it's a paradox. A lot of times when you're really close to it, you kind of feel, my own system sometimes, I'm kept alive by all this activity and stress, right? And then all of a sudden, But that aliveness on that level is there, it's real aliveness. It's much more sustainable. And whereas, when all my energy is going out in activity out there, depending on activity, it can be fun, but all of a sudden you go, oh my gosh. So if you're looking for it, you generally have a tough time with it. So I'm just saying, boom, it's in you. Okay, let's try this. Let's just, everybody put your hand on your tummy. All right, now we're not gonna jump, we're just gonna go boom. How do you go boom? I go boom, thinking about the boom, but boom, pulse, a beat. Or conversely, that beat's going on, but just in the silent surroundings of that beat. But all of a sudden, boom, boom. It's going on right, what does they say? Heaven is going on right here. And that beat is not necessarily heaven, but that, let's say, that universal mother, her heartbeat, what we all came out of, boom, is going on right here, right now. So put your hand here and boom. So I'm kind of not locking here, but it's just a body feel of it. Body feel of it. Body feel of it. If I get too much like I'm looking for it, thinking about it, I'm missing kind of the boom of it. Right? Okay. So, in fact, there's an exercise, this one. See, what happens with this one is you can go this way. I'm getting tired. I get tired of that drift. All right. Well, conversely, I'm sort of, I'm kind of in the idea of it. But what happens is, and this happened to me once in Japan. You just go through tremendous emotional ups and downs. And I was doing this like this in class, and Hikizuchi Sensei just yelled at me. And all of a sudden, someone, whoa, like the motor turned on. It was like, wow, what's this? Well, I'm going like this, going, boy, I was tired of doing this too much, and I was going on, and then all of a sudden it was like, yelled at me for just doing the outer form of it, and boom, ignited the motor. And it was almost like I wasn't shaking, something was vibrating through me. Boom. But I was very conscious of it. Whoa, what's this? You see what I mean? So, that can be done this way. It's good, sometimes you get a group of people and, you chant, like the mantras in Shingu or Amaterasu Omi Kami on the first round, the sun goddess, divine love. And then Oharai Dono Omi Kami, the Kami grouping for purification. The last one was Ame no Minakanushi no Omi Kami. And that was the kami of the universal center, Ame no Minakanushi. But there's that sense for there, all that, boom. And so I remember one time, Tojima Sensei visited the States in 1970, 79, yeah. And boom. And he would do this, right? And then sometimes he would teach sword, right? And I just remember looking at one, boom, and boom, that, boom. And I could see that right in the way he was doing this. And you can do this for hours. But kototama means to kind of actually shake up the spirit, the soul, but wake it up. So, anybody on that one? So we're kind of going through various movements. One way of, another way of kind of getting into that is sound. Okay, so let me. So movements like this, for example, when you start to add the two hands to the figure eight, you're boom, 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 boom. Everything. Is orchestrated from this area. Of course, you know, your intelligence, you have to learn the positioning and everything. But then you go into kind of the more primalness of it. And that's right here to here. And boom, when your feet, boom, they move off of that. You know, and your hips, boom, they turn off of that. And your arms and hips, your whole system itself. Instead of doing that, it's like boom, 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 boom. It all starts to move off of these primal beats. Okay? So, something that we do su to oo to ah to o to oo to eh, sometimes including a re as a part of that, e, and sometimes including a gi, re, gi. But in some sense, what we're saying is this is not purely moving your muscles here. You're coordinating your breathing. And one way of getting in touch with your breathing at that level is vibration or sound. So, for example, here, but as with everything, when I add that second hand, see, I actually get a lot. It's not I kind of feel the whole body becoming the sound. Not if you feel like it, join me on that one. So you're taking the right hand, this right hand for me. So there's a real kick when I add that, when I go from su to u, original consciousness, my position, I'm in that already, right from the beginning. Original consciousness, nature, whatever, boom, we're a part of that. Su to u. If you feel like it, try it a couple times. See, it helps me to do the sound. Su, to actually to get that primal burst. Boom. If you don't feel like it, don't do it. But if you want to try it, do it. You can turn that, you can mute it if you want. All right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there is that kick. There is that primal kick. You see what I mean? Yeah. You've got, not everybody likes them, but those sounds Bruce Lee used to make, which were kind of unnerving, and it's from a very, I've seen Aikido people go, that's kind of crazy. But if you listen to Osensei stuff, he wasn't doing those Bruce Lee animal type sounds, but his chanting had a type of primalness to it. He did not sound like a Shinto priest. And so, I never really heard him do the su to u. This is my own practice, but su, su, that boom right there, okay. And I have to do a sword cut, then that's a boom. See, I can exercise with it. I'm gonna work out, but there's that boom, that primalness. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. And to some degree, if you miss it, you miss the tremendous aliveness of Osensei's stuff. Now, he's not here to show us that in the physical, but you see, it's the point where, oh, I don't want to do that stuff. It's just crazy. It doesn't understand it. I don't want to do it. Or conversely, oh, it's all spiritual. No, the actual sense of it's like boom by itself. You're going to go boom. If you do a couple of sword cuts and you're in a bad mood or in a depression, let me tell you, you're not in one if you've really gotten into that. Doesn't mean you got to go out there and kill anybody. It's not that at all. It's like somebody who's so frustrated and so twisted and so angry, and so this is like you're just going to go right back into that primal essence and boom, and hit it. Okay? And there's a purity to that. It has nothing to do with any sort of violence, any sort of acting out. In fact, most of the time it's very cleansing. So, if I'm going to do something, I swing the sword for a while, all right. Other things I do, I'll play the horn because it's, the breath work is very similar. Okay? Anybody on that su to u? Okay, well, we'll just kind of go on and we'll give it a Yeah. So we'll go su to ooh. Now there's ooh to ah. But even there, nice sound, right? But I'll try to do it from here. So even right there, boom, there's that feeling, boom. There's that primalness to that sound. Okay? Whoops. We are, wow, time-wise, we're right there with it. Anyway, let's, we can go into this a little bit more. It's hard to do this, for example, in the park outside. People think you might call 911 because it's, there's a lot of energy that starts to move. But I'll take this with me. Okay. That's something that I think that a lot of people, they kind of miss about it. You know, is that, you know, being really spiritual doesn't mean you're not in touch with your own primalness and the primalness of the universe. Well, since he's talking about purifying, that's one of the most purifying things you can do is to get in touch with yourself at that level. Because if you don't, the world puts you in these weird contortions to be a part of it. And you know, the more you're kind of caught in this contortion and that contortion, a lot of anxiety and then a lot of stress. And one way of dealing with it is you know, just I mean, just go and do some shortcuts or something like that. Just sort of, you know, that is also misogi, by the way. That is also misogi. I mean, you know, there was a, you know, this document. It wasn't a documentary. It was one of those things where people in the, I guess it would probably be 50s, 60s, where they travel and they, you know, they shoot these travel shows. And so it was called Lee Green's Rendezvous with Adventure. And they go into Aikido. They're going to go to the Tokyo Tower when it opens. And they go to Aikido thinking, but they look at it and they ask some sort of a crazy combination between tumbling and jujitsu. Definitely not for us. So they go to the Tokyo Tower and then they kind of shoot the opening of the Tokyo Tower. And then they come down to the, you know, the street level, and somebody, one of the camera crew, you know, actually saw this book that was on, you know, just at this newsstand. And it was about Aikido and it was about O-sensei. And so, you know, the guy who's heading the show says, oh my God, according to this book, we missed the whole purpose of our visit to Aikido this morning. We didn't see Mr. Ueshiba. And so they actually come in and, you know, the show shifts to an audience, you know, between, the people in the camera crew and this guy, Lee Green. And O-sensei comes in, you know, and you know, it's kind of like, you know, he's kind of the archetypal master. You know, and Koichi Toei sensei, who spoke some English, right? He was the interpreter. And there was a, you know, a lot of question and answer. Well, sensei, you know, unfortunately, they blocked a lot of it out. And it's sort of interpreted, you know. But one of the things that Lee Green says, and could you ask Mr. Ueshiba to demonstrate the word in Aikido? And so, Tohei Sensei, and O Sensei kind of gets a gleam in his eye and he says, Ima kara yarimasu. I will do so right now. And then he does the sound. And I remember just hearing that sound, and it just, in a good way, freaked me out. He kind of, it was, the O kototama, up spiral, down spiral. And let me tell you, it wasn't like he was in this wishful, oh, type of mode. It's like, he hits that sound, it's building. Great forces gathering. Connecting all the way up, spiraling up to the whatever, and bringing all of that down here. So, this chanting, if you do it right, gets you there. See, most people, I don't know, I should pray more or something like that, but it's not that at all. It's not that at all. The actual kototama is one way of kind of getting in touch with the primalness of your own being, which, of course, what was the universe at its beginning? It was what it was, but one of the things, it was original, it was alive, it was new, it was primally itself. And we were right there at that beginning, some aspect of us. We all come out of that beginning. And then, the ah, the oh, one goes into the many. But the many can go back to the one. Okay, so that's kind of the double movement of it. But when you do the chanting that way, and that was kind of interesting, because I remember in the real distant past, the area before it got so rarefied, I'm talking about Northern California, we used to get together and we used to celebrate O Sensei's passing on April the 26th. And lend a holiday, Sensei and I would chant. And I remember what I would do is I would do the and then I would do the ki. Hikizuchi Sensei used to do the O chant. Then he would do the ki. And I just remember talking to Linda about it. I said, "You want to do it this year?" We were shifting what we were doing. No, I don't want to. Just I find it difficult to open. And then what happened? This was, some, not in the distant past, but I was with Ano Sensei, and he had gone somewhere with Linda, and she had done the chant. And he said, "Yeah, Jack, she done the O thing, just like you." I said, "Really? That's good." In other words, it takes a little bit. You go, huh? But there's an area where sometimes you don't make noise, nobody listens to you. That old axiom, and it doesn't have to be something spiritual. I remember this was, I think it was 2016. And it was the night before an area CAA gathering. And the hottest thing in sports were the Golden State Warriors because they were like winning almost every game. They're good. And they did. They shattered all records during the regular season. And they were playing a really good team. There were Kevin Durant when he wasn't with them. And it was played in Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City was just that much better. But the Warriors fought back. And I think it went into overtime. And the Warriors get the ball with a couple of seconds to go, and it's tie. And whoever gets the rebound throws it out to Curry. And everybody expects him to go close and then take a shot, try to win the game. But he pulls up from 40 feet and nails that shot. And, you know, the announcer says something, Curry pulls up from 40 feet, bang, bang. He just nailed it. And I mean, you know, nobody, now a lot of players take that shot. But in those days, I was talking 2016, that was not long ago, nobody would think about trying to hit a game winner from 40 feet. But I remember what it was like. I remember I just was right there, and all of a sudden, I had this incredible sense of how grateful I was for being alive. Not that he won the game or we won the game, meaning my team did, but there was that kototama act of bravery. And if you look at Curry, he's not a guy that brags at all. But it's almost like, you know, like when you actually make that sound, you're like him pulling up from 40 feet to shoot a game winner. It takes incredible courage. Well, Sensei says you trust to trust. You believe to believe. You do good to do good. You act to act. And, you know, that's kind of the Don Juan version of what a warrior is. Not a basketball player, necessarily. Although, you know, that's part of my kototama, right? I'm a fan of the Golden State Warriors. So I think the perfect kototama for me, if I have a basketball game, and there was the perfect moment when he just pulls up from 40 feet and nails it. And the announcer goes, bang, which means he made it. Then it goes again, it goes, bang. And I was just in that moment so grateful to be alive. The only other moment I would compare that with in my whole life was Jenny's mom and I, we did a home birth. It was actually in the dojo in Japantown on North 6th Street. We had a couple of midwives. And when my daughter came out, and I actually caught her, it was that powerful a moment. That was a powerful moment. And what was funny is the next day, you know, Frank Durant Sensei was there at, you know, for the CAA meeting. And I said, "Did you see that basketball game, that shot at the end?" He said, "You know, I was out at a restaurant, but then everybody started looking at the TV screen and standing up. And so, yeah, I started to look at the screen. So, yeah, I did see that shot." It was almost like that wave of that kototama, even though it was in Oklahoma City, traveled, and everybody was talking about that shot. It was like a moment in time space where there was like a sound that reached right to the beginning of creation and touched that primal energy and came right into him, and he fires it up with no doubt, total belief, total trust, and nails it. You get the bang, bang, you know, from the announcer. not just one bang, bang, he gets all bang, bang, So, that acts like that are also kototama. And that's something we oftentimes miss, like, oh, we're doing Aikido, we're low-key, we're spiritual. That's true. But on the other hand, warriorship has nothing to do with beating anybody or what happened. One of our biggest enemies, if you're a basketball fan, a Warrior fan, was Kevin Durant. He was just like, he was real. And so what happened? He decided to play with us for a couple of years. So it's almost like the enemy says, I want to join you guys. that was Aikido. And it was, a lot of it was probably because of that one moment he's going, duh, huh, right? And so, there's a point where, he lost, but then again, he was criticized because it said, well, you cheated. You went to the super team. No. Something in what Curry did opened the connection. And he wanted to be a part of that. He didn't do that just to win championships. He did that because it was an act of Aikido. That's what Aikido is supposed to do. It's supposed to wake us up. It's supposed to really get us in touch with the primal experience of being alive, which is part of the spirituality of it. And, in these days with the coronavirus, and if you really want to manage your stress, get in touch with that. And, you're probably not going to be able to do that, but you can chant it in your own space. You can do the movements, and you can start to get in touch with that. I mean, Sensei's chanting, his kiaiing is very different than anybody else's. Hikizuchi Sensei learned a lot from him. And what I found is, when I would watch videos or hear tapes of O-Sensei, I was kind of grateful to Hikizuchi Sensei for kind of being a template. So when I actually heard the sounds that they recorded or videotaped, or not video then, because we didn't have video then, it was just shot on film, that I could, wow. Ooh. And there's that area where you're very awake. And the thing about the kototama is not about the actual sound. It is about the act of being in that place, either using the sound to get to that more primal essence of you, or chanting that sound from that more primal essence of you. It's an act. And in the Don Juan tradition, a warrior defines himself or herself by his or her acts. You're not a warrior by thinking about something or doing a routine. You're a warrior because your acts have power. You have that primalness. And so, that's something, and I'm not exactly sure the best way to do it, because if you do all this stuff, then it becomes ritual, then it becomes, people get a certain amount of group consciousness by doing the ritual. But I was going to say, I don't know, he really expected, I think he probably hoped other people would follow what he was doing. But I think he also knew that they would have to find their own way to it. And he was an example, a template of it. Very original, very powerful. Not so much, like he could beat people up, but he was touching a primal essence, such a deep level. that he was bringing things into being. It was like Curry's shot, you know. And I think I really pissed Nado Sensei off because I said, that kid, he's 30 years younger than me. So, at that point, I guess he was probably about 28 years old. I was 68. And I just said, he's doing all Sensei stuff better than we are. No, he wasn't putting a gi on. He didn't have a beard. But that capacity to create those moments by doing, and he's not going to be out there going su or doing an Aikido chant or move, but it's the act coming from that place of primal, original power, force, beauty, truth, whatever you want to call it. That is the kototama. And that's what I saw. I was thinking, wow. And as I said, there's two most powerful moments in my life. One was catching my daughter when she was born, being at her birth. The other, it's probably had a couple other moments, but that shot, I just remember going, wow. Because it touched me at such a deep level. But, and I'm not going to make that shot in an NBA game. I'm not going to do that. But I have my own ways of touching that primalness, you see. And sometimes I forget it because it's like, you just get too caught up in that. So I don't know, anybody, anything to say, or, you probably should kind of move on out. But that's an important message. So, I was glad to hear from Ano Sensei that Linda was doing the chant. Because, when I just did that one year, well, why don't you do that? You do the kiai and the kototama. She said, no, I don't. Right now, I'm having trouble kind of opening to do that. And so I said, okay. But, just to find that, sometime after, honestly, she's doing that you do. He I think he laughed about it because he realized what I was doing. I was copying O Sensei, But anybody before we break? Okay.
Yes, Sensei.
Yes.
Just a very quick practical question.
Sure.
That video footage, the English language interview you saw with O Sensei and Tohei Sensei,
yeah.
Do you know if that's on the internet somewhere?
Yeah, you have to look for it. But, it was in a show called Rendezvous with Adventure. And it's in one, Stan Pranin copied a bunch of they were all just on film. And Stan Pranin, did Aikido, but he also converted a lot of the stuff that was on film into video. We all owe him a tremendous debt of gratitude for that. And so he put them in video collections. I don't know, it might be in Takemusu Aiki. There's a whole bunch of names, divine techniques, he groups them all, in there. So you're going to have to do a little bit of hunting, but it's there. I just don't know which collection it is. But if I look for it, I find it. The other one that's good is if you find the one that's the NHK documentary, where O Sensei is in Iwama, and he actually, he, for example, even when he's doing, the traditional Shinto prayers, those are the ones, that you actually hear O Sensei doing chants and sounds. The O Kototama you should listen to because it is incredible and is on film. It's probably nothing like being present, for the live demonstration of it. It was the best we got. And then, unfortunately, the people, on NHK, he starts to talk over him chanting. But, his chants, he wasn't just going, Come, you know, Shinto priest. Kamaharani moto tsumiya tsumewa kami. You know, it's beautiful sound and they know the word, but he's very different. Kamaharani moto tsumiya tsumewa kami. His sounds cut. They're primal. They are like, and so, if you practice, I know that there was an interview with one of his other students, Abe Sensei, who was a calligraphy teacher also. And Abe Sensei said his own breath practice was doing things like the formal Shinto chants O-sensei did, observing O-sensei's breath patterns. And their intonation changes, okay? And he just said that, and what happens when I heard O-sensei chant Byamatsu Norito, I was grateful for Hikizuchi sensei, who had the same sort of pitch changes and breath changes that O-sensei had. And I had much exposure to Hikizuchi sensei. So when I heard O-sensei do it, I started to add something of that in my own way to what Hikizuchi sensei had taught. But, Abe sensei said his breath practice was simply doing the intonation changes and the breath changes of the Shinto chants O-sensei did. And so, a lot of that, well, he's an old man, yeah, he's religious, yeah. But, he was training when he was doing that. And it's really too bad, that there's so little of that appreciated. The other thing that I find, for example, if you're going to listen to anybody, listen to Chet Baker. He's a singer, but he's primarily a trumpet player. But his breath changes are very similar. Again, a good friend of mine, Art Frank, he's a bodybuilder, boxer, did some acting work, but he's a bebop drummer, real strong hands. And he could take steel spikes. And he said it was something. He could bend them. He could take those. He said he would give those spikes to NFL football players and powerlifters that couldn't bend it. And so he was telling Chet, I can bend one of those. Powerlifters and NFL football players can't. And so he said, Baker went, oh, like this? And Baker was, he was about 5'10", weighed about 130 pounds, and had a drug habit. And I asked Art, well, how did he do that? And Art looked at me. He says, I don't know, but intuitively, I know it has something to do with breath. Breath. So all the movements, you're studying the movement of your arms and legs and hips, but start to see the core and the breath are very connected. You can say it's breath work. Yes, it is. Because, you can take the breath and all of a sudden the breath itself. I watched Curry shoot, he gets his feet, his hands, his alignment, and boom, that shot is like, it's like the breath contracts, expands, boom. And it's not anything, one of his teammates, who unfortunately is no longer there, Andrea Iguodala, said, if I'm going to teach my son to shoot, I'm going to shoot like Klay Thompson, textbook, beautiful jump shot. Curry's shot is just like, it's like, in the void, all of a sudden, there is a vibration turn. and boom, an original breath. And that can't be taught. So, you know, I'm a Curry fan for that, for other reasons also, but, you know, he's, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's real difficult to do basketball. It's, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if he went into more social work, because that seems what he's headed towards at some point in his life, which is good. We really need somebody like that in other arenas other than basketball. I hope he plays for a couple more years, because I like to see him. But anyway, I'm gonna, any other questions, or does that answer your question, Cliff? Okay, all right. So
yes, and Audrey found the video clip and posted it in the chat.
Yeah, listen to it, study it. Okay, take care.